Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me today on Working Lunch. For those people in our audience listening, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your business and what do you do?
Sure. So my name's Sara McCarthy, and I own a company called Ink Revival that I created now almost 7 years ago. I created it at the desk of my second job out of college, and
Which was what?
it was a financial firm in Manhattan, 30
Okay.
Rock, so it was a pretty
Oh,
cool
nice.
location. And I used it as a sort of, I guess, my home base for clients to come meet me, and it was pretty cool. But so Ink Revival is a design and hand lettering, branding, wedding invitation, fine stationery, a little bit of everything company where I do all the artwork and design myself.
Very cool. So, what were you like as a kid? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up? And, like, what did you study in college?
Sure. So, as a kid, I guess I kind of handle projects the same way that I do now, a little bit more refined, but now I always was creative. I was always drawing, doodling, making bubble letters, like writing everything I could in some sort of unique form. And I knew that I wanted to do something creative. I wasn't sure what that was. I always loved New York City, and I thought that was a really amazing place to be if you're in the arts.
Did you grow up in the capital region?
I grew up on the northern end of Lake George,
Okay.
yes, in Ticonderoga, so very small town. I graduated with probably 82 people, but art was my favorite subject. I then did a few murals in my high school. I went to school in Boston at Manual College, a small liberal arts school. And I went to school for graphic design, and my minor was English. But yeah, so art all the way. I knew something had to be done with art, and it worked out. So
That's
it's kind of
cool.
crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like when you were in college, like was there something like when you were studying where you did it ever occur to you like, oh, I want to start my own business one day, or was it just kind of like how did you come up with your business?
Sure. So when I was in college, I was aiming to be in publishing and on the design side of like magazines. So I ended up working at the Condé Nast Media Group with as an intern and then a junior designer, where we did advertorials for like Vogue, GQ, Allure, Self, and all of that. And I actually ended up working there because I got an internship after cold emailing every single person I could possibly find at the magazine. And I worked at Self in the accessories closet as an
That's
intern,
amazing.
which I met somebody else who then introduced me to somebody else. And then it worked out for me to be able to actually do my major after I graduated. Yeah, so that's kind
Persistency.
of persistence.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
So, can you talk about like what, or maybe explain a turning point for you when, some people may call hand lettering and sketching a hobby. So, like, how did you turn that, what some call a hobby into a business is?
So a lot of my friends and family at that moment in time, were either engaged, having babies, and I myself ended up getting engaged and obviously got married. I have kids, but I ended up doing a lot of their hand lettering and invitation design just for fun, and realized that I actually loved it. And when it came time for my own wedding, that was actually the year that I started Ink Revival, because I was very scared at first. I never put anything on, it was actually on Facebook, or no, Instagram came out maybe a year before they had come out, that I had started posting my work. So it was a fairly new platform. And I was terrified to post anything of my work on my personal page on Facebook, because I was scared what people would think and what is she doing with it. So I ended up posting and creating a little page called Ink Revival, which I spent maybe 2 or 3 months figuring out the name.
Yeah, how did you come up with that name?
I kind of had a little like group session of sorts with my 3 closest girlfriends, and I just had a bunch of words in front of me that I thought could potentially work together. And then Ink Revival came, and one of my friends said, "Oh, you're breathing life back." I was like, "Wait, okay, done." Breathing life back into each line. So that's now my slogan. Excuse me. So Ink Revival was created, and I started posting things small, like marker, nothing pen and ink or anything yet. And I started using hashtags, which I hadn't really understood could be a search engine for people, but apparently it was already. And I was in New York, so I had my location down. I had my hashtags for like gold mirror, wedding calligraphy, anything that I could think of that would work. And a wedding planner in Brooklyn actually found me, and I still work with her to this day. But she found me, and she kind of set me off to think that this could actually be something I could do professionally. So I just kept building on that and trying my hardest to, I guess, introduce myself to other people and send samples out, and it just kind of grew organically from there.
What kind of challenges have you had with your business, if any?
Sure. Growing pains, lots of...
Yeah, because people want you.
Yes. And I can only provide so much because it's only me. So trying to figure out how to sort of maneuver to be able to work with as many people as I possibly can, but also maintain my quality and the design that I want to be able to give. I kind of have set boundaries for myself and minimums. But as far as, I guess, challenges, it's just the everyday challenges of growing a business. You're not just designing. I'm doing invoicing and billing and shipping and scheduling and production calendars and working with my own vendors. So emailing, if for one project, for example, I do wedding invitations mainly, and it'll be my printer, my laser cutter, my wax seal maker, my, the ribbon vendor, the paper maker. So I have so many different moving parts to one.
Are you a one-stop shop?
Yes.
Okay.
One-stop shop from at least, brand, anything really, branding, wedding invitations. But for the wedding invitations, I'll do the initial design, proofing. I do all my lettering, all my painting, all my illustration. I then, because of my graphic design degree, I'm able to do my typesetting. I'm able to provide them with graphics that maybe aren't hand lettered if they are not into that, which is totally fine. I'm open to many, many different design elements. And then I'll do all of the assembly. Sometimes I'll get help for that part because it's more like a grunt load of work. Either it's, I work with one girl, Samantha, who's helped me a lot. And so she'll either help me or my mom, my husband. He's my wedding husband, my incremental husband. And then I'll mail, assemble, ship out. The whole 9 yards.
You do all the inking and...
when you're working with Incredible, you're working directly with me right now at this time. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Everything.
That's really cool. So you mentioned challenges, and you said you've set up boundaries and things. Like, what are some of those boundaries that you set up to help with your business so you can provide the best service?
Yes. So I have set up minimums about how much I will, for one job, it doesn't matter the quantity. I have a minimum, and that has changed my life. It took about a year and a half.
A minimum dollar amount or a minimum
dollar amount
production? Okay.
Yep. It has changed my business completely, and I'm able. It's. I don't want to turn away anybody, but at the same time, it's you're able to really put it's a business first and foremost. And while it seems like to a lot of people still this day and age that, it's kind of like a hobby, it's like a craft, it's my livelihood. I support my family with this. So I pay my bills with Think Revival.
That's amazing.
So yeah, minimums were huge, and boundaries as far as I work from home generally, and boundaries for me without having a boss to tell me, you leave at 5 or you come in at 9. I was up till 2:30 the other night, and I left at 6 a.m. the next day for a train to Manhattan for an event. So, and then I came back the next night at 11 and woke up again to bring my kids to school. So I need to set boundaries for myself. Otherwise, I would drive myself to being really sick or not want to do it anymore. And so boundaries and burnout, exactly. Yeah, I'm sick today because of all my travel, so I have a little raspy voice. But it's boundaries and minimums were huge for me, and it took a while to implement. Just to I don't text clients. I make sure they email me. I make sure I document everything. And so it's just growing pains and trial and error, I suppose. I don't have someone that I get help from other professionals in my industry, but everyone handles their business so differently, which is nice because you can kind of fine tune it to yourself. But a lot of trial and error. Yeah.
That's so good. So how do you practice writing and drawing? And can you explain the difference between writing your name and drawing your name in letters?
Sure. So I read this and I was trying to figure out how I would answer it because I kind of intertwine everything in a way where now I do a lot of spot calligraphy, which spot calligraphy is when, say on in a magazine, for example, you'll see a headline that's written in cursive. That designer is clearly only writing one file and sending it in, and it's being printed multiple times. So spot calligraphy is like the names on a wedding invitation, because the designer is having it printed, right? So you're making that one file that goes to print. So I kind of consider that hand lettering, but also drawing, because I'm fine-tuning aspects of it to meet my client's needs. Hand lettering for me is more doing envelope calligraphy. So like a guest addressing on the front of an envelope, you're not stopping and editing each thing, you're writing it out, and it's like you're writing a letter, for example. And drawing it could also be like doing a monogram or a duogram or a monogram.
Duogram?
So a duogram is when you're combining yours and your partner's first initials, or your first initials and your last name. A monogram is a single person. So one person, your first, middle, and last. Or venue sketches, anything that you're drawing that doesn't have to be written out like an address to me, I suppose, is the difference, or the material you're using to do so.
Do you do mostly letters or like images, like drawing images? Like what do you find?
Everything.
Okay.
It's like I have one wedding suite right now where I hand painted trees, and they have a beautiful a golden retriever. So I painted that. And then she has a winery, so a bottle of wine and cookies because they love cookies, and tacos because they love tacos, to create a wedding crest, which would be the design element that surrounds text on an invitation, like the wreaths that you see.
Cool.
But then I drew their duogram, so their first initials combined, which then we'll use on different elements throughout and all the way to the day of, so the wedding itself.
So it's like you kind of almost create like a theme.
Oh yeah, it's a brand.
Them
for sure.
But you're kind of creating a brand for your clients, right?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's kind of my goal, is to create something they can use after the wedding, but also throughout in many different ways, not the same thing over and over and over again.
That's brilliant. Where do you draw your inspiration from? I love that pun.
Yeah, where do I draw it from? I suppose it depends on who I'm working with, because I myself, I draw it from everywhere. Literally, if you could see the room we're sitting in, I would draw it from like the trim, the color of the walls, just anything, wherever you are. But for my wedding clients, a lot of times before coming to me, if they haven't already discovered sort of like their florals, their linens, the location, I don't like to see any paper. If I ask them for inspiration, I don't want them to send me invitations. I want them to send me like a sunset of where they're getting married. I want them to send me florals, food, place settings. I have a wedding right now where they're getting married in Connecticut, and it's at a yacht club. So I had them send me all different elements of that they would want included, like cable knit sweaters. It's in the fall. So cable knit sweaters, like a champagne cart, the ropes that you are tethering the boat to the dock with, like all different types of elements, because I like texture. I like to draw from, anything that isn't paper, because I want to create it for them from scratch. And that's what you get when you're working with me.
That's amazing. So as a creative, what happens, and it sounds like you don't have this problem, but what happens if you find yourself like in a rut, like a creative rut? What do you do that fills your creative tank?
So a lot of the times when I'm working with like my wedding invitation clients, brides and grooms and couples, I am given sort of like the inspiration that I was just telling you about. However, if they don't have that, I try to kind of do due diligence on my own, and try and figure out, I guess, like what that type, because I'm working for that client, and I know when I know. So if I wake up and I'm doing a proof for them and it's not doing it for me, I kind of sit on it and table it and wait. And what's nice is I have a lot of other clients that are brands where they're bringing me things that are so off the wall to be able to do, that are very different from anything that I'm doing in my wedding world, I suppose. So having other projects that are not specific to the big like wedding invitation I'm doing at the moment will keep my other senses kind of going. So it's like photo shoots or the brand events that I do where it's maybe like 30 menus or something, but the style is completely different. It's just having all aspects of my mind on, being able to surround myself with other creatives. And then it just kind of comes to me, I suppose. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night literally and write down something, and then the next day it just happened 2 brides ago where I gave them an idea and they loved it, and it was nothing that we had discussed prior. I just thought of it and I was like, okay, let's just try this. I love it. I feel good about it. And they went with it. So it's just keeping yourself surrounded by other creatives, giving yourself other projects to do that aren't solely one aspect of your career or of your job. So it's just pedaling all throughout different
Yep. That's
ways
really
of being
smart,
creative.
because you're kind of diversifying your
Right.
your clientele, I guess.
Exactly.
That's really smart. What would you say is the bulk of your business? Like, I know we talked a lot about invitations or individuals, but looking through some of your portfolio, like I've seen menus and like, do you do mostly small scale print or like larger print, like maybe posters, or has any of your work been converted to digital and been on a billboard somewhere? Like what's the scale of your business?
So time-wise would be wedding invitations, because those take the longest to create, maybe a year. I'll sign my clients on from save the date to day of. So we're working together for a very long time. So time-wise, that's the most. But quantity-wise is menus, day of, tablescapes for brands. And large-scale pieces, I suppose I've done a few installations. I've never had anything that's been digitized and put up on a billboard or anything like that yet, but I've definitely done installations. When I first moved to, I live in Saratoga Springs now, so I've done a few installations in local businesses here, like painting on their walls or, that sort of thing. But for the most part, I guess the biggest sort of installation I would do is an escort display or a bar scene at an event. But quantity-wise, it's my brands, and just time-wise, it's my wedding clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm just trying to give that person listening, trying to visualize like what exactly
Some people do only wedding invitations, but I need that extra source of creativity, like you said, to keep. I've learned that I need that, or photo shoots, but I haven't done any of those in a while. But the brand clients are similar to, I guess, the quantity that I would do a photo shoot with anyway. But you're working with so many different people that have so many different ideas. So I love that. I would never want that to go away.
Cool. Can you maybe talk a little bit about some of the like more corporate clients? Because on your portfolio, I see like you've worked with Goop and Martha Stewart, Net-a-Porter. Like what? Can you like brag about that? Because that's awesome that you have these like really well-known clients and like such a diverse portfolio.
Yeah. So I've been working with event designers a lot throughout my career, as opposed to event planners. So it's a little bit different. The event designer is the one with their brainchild is this event. They're creating the tablescapes, the setup, the color schemes, everything that you would look at the event. But the logistics behind the scenes are like the planners. The at least for these events, they have both, just so one isn't worn out over the other, I think. But for me, I come in and I'm able to help them, I guess, fulfill their vision in a way for just place cards, menus, and either any other collateral that they might have me do. So yeah, it's been cool.
Did you reach out to these brands, or have just by word of mouth, somebody told somebody and referral, and then
Yeah, so it's all referral. I work pretty closely with a few event designers in the city who, these are their clients, and then through them I am creating these pieces for their events. So yeah, like you said, like Goop, Martha Stewart were like my photo shoots or weddings that were published. And then in Net-a-Porter, I've done a few. I was in the city for a Le Creuset event. I did a chalkboard for them, one-off stuff. And then I'll do in-person, like on-site lettering or painting. There was actually a really cool event the other night that I was down there for. And it was a screening of Thelma and Louise with like the original cast, and then like this whole beautiful celebration for women's rights, and because it was 100 years of women's suffrage. So it's cool to experience it and just be in the moment, and you always get creativity from that. And then I've done on-site paintings for like Maison Margiela. Oh goodness, who else? Just a bunch of different like the Dolce & Gabbana I've been on site with for...
Oh, just Dolce
like,
& Gabbana. No big deal.
That was interesting, though. I had a newborn, and she was at my sister-in-law's apartment. I Ubered. Like, it was... To all the moms listening, I had to, like, Uber some stuff for her to be able to survive to the Upper East Side because I was there for so much longer. But they're all a lot of fun, and I can't remember at this time who else, but there's been a ton of different brands and names that I wouldn't have thought I'd be. Guerlain is one that I work with a lot too, who I actually became really close with the contact there, and I'm doing her wedding invitations now. So and she's a good friend now. So it's cool to be able to.
That's awesome.
Merge everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you been able to build your brand and your business in a world of like Vistaprint and Moo and Shutterfly, where all these big companies, you can upload something or create something, and how have you been able to stand out?
Good question. I feel like everybody wants to have that one point person that they talk to. And a lot of these companies, you're not talking to the designer, you're not talking to the creative, you're not talking to the owner, you're not talking to the person that you like, let me speak to your manager sort of thing. I am it. I am that sole person. And because of the time I've been in this industry, even before I started Ink Revival, it's probably been 10, 11, 12 years now that I've been in the industry of print. And I've gotten to know the best vendors. I've gotten to know where you can go for the best quality product. I pride myself in only providing that, because I wouldn't want my name to be attached to something that was less than. I feel like they're being able to customize it completely to their discretion, and you can't always do that. And it's the customization, I think, the personalization, the one-on-one contact, if you want a sample, sure, I'll send you a one-off sample. Absolutely. Want to meet in person? I'll meet you in person. Like, I can be there at your event. I can, I think that one-on-one contact, that one-on-one, just everything, every aspect of it, you're working with me throughout the entire thing, making it exactly as you want it, or I'm helping you create it in a way that you never would have thought you could create it. But compared to the big, they're amazing. If you need something quick, go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've worked with them too. There's no shade toward those companies.
No, not at all.
It's building a brand is tough when you're up against bigger companies.
Yep, and that's where you keep your minimums and boundaries. You have to to stand apart. You have to put yourself in you have to look highly upon yourself, I suppose, first and foremost. You have to believe in yourself to be able to do that and not be scared to show your work, because that's what clients want to see. They want to see it, and don't stop. It took me to get to this point. It's probably been it was probably 4.5 years of just like posting and working at night, and because I had a daytime job and a child, and I was up until, 1 a.m. at my dining room table in Manhattan in my tiny little apartment, like doing anything I could and putting my name out there, sending samples to other stationers. I didn't start as a stationer. I started as a calligrapher. But then I realized I could take my graphic design skills I'd learned myself and the contacts I had from other past careers, and I was the custom print manager they're going to like, oh, what were your past careers? I was the custom print manager for about a year after college before I started at the financial firm. So I was at Papyrus in Soho. They're actually closing now, but it takes a while, just being consistent and just putting it out there, and someone will catch on at some point. It won't be right. It won't be overnight. It was a long time for me. And the thing, if you were to scroll all the way back, I'm not recommending this. If you were to scroll all the way to my first Instagram post, I haven't deleted anything. It's all there. You can see my progress, like visually. You can scroll up and see where I started, and it's very different from what you'll see today. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my timeline, I suppose, of sorts, to see my progress. And it's been a while.
If you weren't doing Ink Revival, what would you be doing?
My husband asks me the same question. I suppose I'd have to be doing something creative, so I could never actually see myself ever having Ink Revival disappear. I would either pass it on to somebody else or sort of minimize my workload. But I'd be a mom. I'd want to be with my kids. And that's a huge career in itself. So,
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see. Ink Revival will always be in my life.
Yeah.
I've worked so hard. It's my fourth baby.
Yeah.
So I can never see myself giving it up because it's been around longer than my children. So
Wow.
it's the length of my marriage.
What do you typically do for lunch?
For lunch, as I'm talking about my kids, I'm kind of making them, I guess it depends on who I'm with that day. Generally, it's my children. And I'm eating like leftovers. But if I'm like out with friends, oh gosh, I'm like
Oh, that's
makeup and dressed up. Yeah.
Where can people find you online? Like what's your social medias and website?
So Instagram is my biggest. So it's at Ink Revival. And then my website's the same, www.inkrevival.com.
And are you on Facebook at all?
I am on Facebook.
Okay.
It's just my Instagram pictures kind of
Okay, they kind of
go
cross.
automatically. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
This has been so fun. Thank you so much for
you.
taking the time to share about your business, and I'm looking forward to seeing you grow even more. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
That was Sara McCarthy, owner of Ink Revival. Visit our show notes at workinglunchpod.com for links, photos, and the video of our interview. Follow us on Instagram. We're at Working Lunch Pod. And if there's someone who you would like to be featured as a guest, send us a DM or email us at workinglunchpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to Working Lunch and subscribing. We really appreciate the love and support. And remember, your biggest strength is who you are.